Hey there, welcome to the Linc Church podcast channel. You're watching one of our Sunday services. If you'd like to know more about Linc Church, you could follow us on one of our social media platforms, Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter. But for now, lean in and be encouraged for the word that God has for you today.
And as with any great organization, they travel with an awesome team. And so I'd love it if everyone in the LIV team right now that's not on platform, just stand where you are, if you don't mind. If you're from LIV and you're serving us today, just stand. We want to say hi to you. We want to say welcome to Linc. It's awesome to have you here. And I thought that after crying in God Bless Africa in the first service, that the second time round I'd be fine. I think I was worse off. I actually transitioned to ugly cry. But it's such a blessing to have you here. And Tich and I have become friends over the last few years as our story and theirs has partnered together to see God do these things. Tich, you come from a crazy background of sports and high flying and all these kind of exciting things. But you tell the story of God finding you at your worst and setting you up for what has become the dream life. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and how God got you to this point today?
Bill, thanks so much for having us and having the choir. We feel such love in this place, and this church has loved us and cared for us, supported us, and so I just want to say thank you to you and the leadership and everybody in the church for your love and support. I'm just so grateful. I just love Jesus so much. I embarked like any other South African in this nation, seeking fame and fortune. Played a little bit of sport. But then at 35 years of age, I ended up in a home for alcoholics and drug addicts, addicted to gambling and to alcohol. And that's where I came to know Jesus. And as he took me by the hand, he never said he would take us out of the valleys, but he said he has walk with us through the valleys. And he took me by the hand and he walked me through the valleys. I paid back all my debt, and then I got to that place. I think Sylvester Stallone says it the best still. He says fame and fortune is like a mirage in the desert. We strive all our lives to get there, and then when we get there, there's nothing. And I got to that place, and then one day I cried out to God and I said, surely there's more to life than this. I was coming back from a mission trip on my own in a car, and I prayed in tongues, and then I screamed at the Lord. And He spoke to me. He said, you need to build a village for the orphan and vulnerable children of this nation so that they would come to know me as their father. Create jobs for rural communities that they can sustain their families. And the government will come and see why it works, and we can point them to the cross. And so that was this ludicrous vision that God gave me in 1997.
It is from the outside a ludicrous vision, but clearly by seeing what God has done, it's His vision. And so we're inspired by that. And I'm inspired by your story. I'm inspired how you would allow God, God blesses the humble. He gives grace to the humble, the Bible tells us. And I think you guys live a very humble life. I know in the early days of the village, you moved out there. In fact, Joan, why don't you tell us? Because you have this grace and calm about you. I say it to everyone that I meet when I speak of you. You seem to have this glow and this smile, and it's almost as if nothing's wrong. But I don't know that all of the journey has been perfect, and some of those moments weren't scary. So tell us about those early days, mortgaging the home to have a banquet and buying a village, and tell us about that.
Actually, there's nothing calm about me. So often we smile, but inside it's a different story. But when Tich first came home with this crazy vision, and he was talking about how we got to create jobs for the rural community, and I said, what's that got to do with bringing up orphans? And and then we started to look for the land and try and get government to give us land, and nothing happened. Unfortunately, when we look back, it was God's plan to give the vision and then send us into the township really to learn, and that's what happened. And I don't know about you ladies, but God always sends the woman first. They even got to the tomb first. And that's exactly what happened in 2001. God put it on my heart to do something when I heard about the starving children in Amawati, which is our biggest informal settlement in KwaZulu-Natal. And I thought, what can I do? And I started to make peanut butter sandwiches with a group of ladies in our church. And that's all the vision I had, was peanut butter sandwiches. And I wanted to just say that everything starts with small beginnings. You know, I had no idea what God, the journey He was going to take us on. And He said He would only show us that much along this road. So I think if He'd shown us the whole picture, we would have run faster than Jonah in the opposite direction. We would have definitely said, use somebody else, Lord. And I think we're living proof that God uses crackpots. And He does use the foolish to confound the wise.
That's awesome. Well, in the Bible, He used a few loaves and some fish to feed thousands. I think if you add peanut butter to the loaves, He can feed the nations. How about that? Can you dance like these kids, Tich? Is that something you want to show us? Is that something we should allow ourselves to see?
You know, Dill, I was with a leader in Uganda, Gary Skinner, and the church was 2,000 strong and dancing like our precious children dance. And he just tapped me on the shoulder and he said, Tich, the white man wasn't made to dance.
I love honesty. And so we've been on the village a few times, and I always tell people whenever I go there, it's with the intention of giving, but I end up leaving with being blessed every single time. It starts at the gate. It literally starts, if you've ever been there. Who's been out to the village? Just show a hand, say yes. That's cool. And I really suggest that you allow God to show you what He's doing out there, because it's phenomenal. But it starts at the gate, and then you see the friendly faces as you climb up the hill, and certainly into the houses with the mothers and what's happening in that school. But there's so much happening on your village. There is so much on there. So why don't you tell us a little bit of where you're at, how many children are there, what's happening in the school, and just some recent developments out there.
So right now we've got just over 180 children. They come through the court process, which is very slow. We've built 96 homes that will, when it's full, be home for 700 children. And we bought the farm next door, and once this village is full, then we'll build a second village, which will be for 1,000 kids. So at the end of the day, once we've completed, we'll be 2,000 children in this area, and we've got the infrastructure to cater for 2,000. We've got our own school, because we really believe that we need to impart positive thinking and education Jesus' way. So, yeah. What
about the church? Because recently we came to the banquet last year, the dinner, the gala evening, and we sat in what has become your church, multi-purpose hall. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it's not very often that the government built the church, but they gave us money for the church, and we've got a beautiful 2,000-seated church. We felt God say to us that we needed to hand over the village to 3 young couples. So we have 3 beautiful couples now, Ati and Chester, and Tanya and Richard, and Karita and Jonathan, who are now heading up the day-to-day running of the village. They're also very involved in the church. So the church continues to grow. It's an amazing experience when we see them worshiping like this. That's the whole village. They're just the chosen few, but there are many that worship and dance just like they do. So it's a very special thing to come to church at the village. And we're not in a hurry to go and watch television or anything like that. So you can, I say to Richter van Niekerk, a friend of mine who goes to the Anglican church here, when he came, I said, Richter, he's a golfer, he played for South Africa. I said, Richter, you know, you're not coming to play 9 holes this morning. This could be 36 holes, because we can be here for a couple of hours, you know. So it's very beautiful that we have the church on the village. It's very special, and the community are coming. God is changing the hearts of the community, and the Promised Land, which is our children's church, continues to grow. We can have 300-400 children there on Sundays, so it's very precious and very special.
You know, we realized after God showed Tich and I to move to the village, and that's another story in itself. And we said, what does your church look like? We've never run a church. I mean, that terrifies us. We'd much rather do a village. And we realized that God was showing us that LIV is the church. Everything that we're doing church 24/7. And on Sundays, we gather together to celebrate around His Word.
Yeah, that's great. Let's give a hand to that. I think that's exactly what God has been showing us. There's been such an incredible favor of your lives. I think it hasn't come without sacrifice, but to see the doors that are opening, it's so inspiring. And so tell us about a few of those doors. In South Africa, you mentioned you've recently been up to Joburg and some really dynamic spaces. Where have you been with the choir so far?
Yeah, I think I mentioned earlier, I think early on, God said that He'd bring all the expertise and the money. And as you start to go, He also said to me, if you want to do your plans, then you must pay for them. But if you want to do my plans, then I'll pay for them. So now at 65 years of age, I've realized best to do God's plans. They're better than our plans, and that He's got a lot more money than I've got. So now we're doing His plans. But His favor has been there, Dill, as you know. Once I said to somebody, and I said to them this morning, I hope I don't upset you or the church, but being a Christian's got to be the most boring life of all time. I don't know if you guys agree. Going to church on Sundays and then going to a cell group maybe once a week, and I thought, this can't be what it's all about. But I don't know how it happens, when it happens, what happens, but the day I became a Christ follower, it became the most exciting lifestyle in the world. And I'm encouraging you that... And so as we embarked on this journey, we bought the farm and then we had no money. I said, God, what can we do? We've got no money. You want to build a village. Then we had the banquet. But the most amazing thing happened because we built the first 8 homes from the money that we raised at the banquet, and then we ran into trouble with the sewers. You can get people to build houses and build schools, but nobody actually wants to put their name to the sewers. So I said to the Premier, Dr. William Keys at the time, I said, Doc, I need some money from you to put the infrastructure in. So he said, Tich, I haven't got any money to give you, but if you can convince my ministers that what you're doing is an answer to the problems we face, they can give you some money. They've got budgets. So the incredible favor, he opened the door for me to go to Cabinet. So I went to Cabinet and I shared this vision. And this is what the Minister of Health said. He said, ladies and gentlemen, I've just got back from Rwanda. I saw with my own eyes babies feeding off the breasts of dead mothers. He said, we fast go down that road in this country if we don't do something about it. He said, I support this 100%. I said to government, I don't want any money from government. The Bible has never said government have to look after the children. I keep hearing people, what are government doing? Government don't have to do anything. The Bible says the church needs to look after the children. And so I said to him, I don't want any money from them. If they want to have a say in the running of the village, the church has to. The next week I got a memo from Cabinet to say all 13 government departments supported LIV, and they gave me 97 million rand. God owns all things. He is all things. He is the provider. And as Dylan, this church has seen, continue to do what God has called us to do, and He will provide. These are His children. He tells me they're not my burden, they're His burden. Just do what I've called you to do, and I will provide for you to look after these precious children. And this is the fruit of your love and the love they've experienced of the Father.
Well, we're grateful to be a part of it. And we're excited that you're leaving soon for the UK. And I hear you're there for 11 weeks. Joan, why don't you tell us, what's that going to look like? Because that looks interesting from the outset.
Gee. We went to Johannesburg for 10 days as a trial run. And after the first day of being in a shopping mall and then at Loftus Versfeld, we staggered back to our accommodation, exhausted. And I said to God, I am never going to make 10 weeks, nor will the kids. But, God does provide strength as well. And we go for literally 11 weeks. 80 performances in churches, schools, shopping malls, Trafalgar Square, and then we finish off in our UK trip. It's UK and Scotland. We go right up to Aberdeen, all the way down to Southampton and Eastbourne, all over England. And then the last week is in Dubai. But on the 1st of September, we have a banquet, of course, another banquet number 3, for the business people in England. And at South Africa House, yes, in Trafalgar Square. And Dr. William Keys is also coming across to talk. Yeah.
80 performances. I don't know if everyone heard that just now. I just want to say that again just to let it sink in. I know you had a tough Monday, but they're doing 80 performances. And I just want to actually just honor Ant and Des, who lead this choir and are setting them up. I'm not sure where you are, somewhere around here, but let's just appreciate what they're putting into these children as they travel. 80 performances. Suddenly that board meeting you have this week just looks like a walk in the park, right? And so God is doing incredible things, and we love it. You know that Joan's bloodline is Grant Twiggy Baker, who is the South African big wave rider that has won the world champs a few times. Do you know that? And so you can understand now why she is as crazy as what she is, right? And so adrenaline runs in your veins, and we just love this journey with you guys. Why don't you tell us a little bit of what the future holds? You've started out. I want you to know that if you saw the video just now, it's been 5 years since they moved onto the village. You can see what God has done in a few years. And just now outside, Tich said to me, because I said it's amazing, he said, you know what, Dill, I think he's speeding up what he's doing in the world. The world is growing quicker and quicker and quicker and faster and faster and faster, but God is expediting the expansion of his kingdom. I don't know if you believe that, Linc Church, but we're a part of an expansive, ever-increasing kingdom. And it's an awesome privilege to be a part of what God is doing. And so LIV is just one of those stories amongst many around the world. What does the future hold? Because it's bright, so tell us about it.
I don't think it's about LIV. I really don't. You know, I just switch on the television. I see now there's warnings about ISIS at the European soccer. I even heard now Joburg shopping centres and Cape Town shopping centres. The world is living in fear. And I've never been more excited in my life because there's only one answer. His name is Jesus Christ. And it's time for the church to get out of the four walls and share the love of Jesus with those that don't know him. So it's time for the church, Dill, and Jesus. And we just, it's just been the greatest privilege for us to be a little part of the plans that he's doing. I think not only with the children, I believe he's going to change this nation and this continent through the orphan and vulnerable children who the world have turned their back on. 50 million orphan and vulnerable children in Africa. 26,000 die every single day. Imagine 26,000 children dying every day through diseases we could prevent. Yeah. And we sit in the churches and we say we're going to pray for them. It's time for us to go and show them the love of Jesus. And so I just get so excited at what God is doing in the church. And for young leaders like Dylan, and I mean this, I'm not saying it because but they're young leaders now who don't have a church focus anymore. They have a kingdom focus. And as we start to see kingdom and church working together, he's never going to change his plan from the local church. It's going to be always the local church, but with leaders with kingdom vision, that we would come together in unity in the spirit. And it's that is going to change nations. And so we're excited for what you guys are doing here in this area, this part of the vineyard. And we're also privileged to be part of what you're doing, Dill, as much as you're from us. So we're very excited. The village, we've got land in Johannesburg now. We've got 62 hectares there, and we hope to start building by the end of the year. So things are starting to move, you know, and we're just excited to be part of it.
Can I just say that you're never too young or too old to make a difference, and it always starts around you. Whoever God brings across your path, and whatever, and even if you look and see, God, what have I got in my hands? Because we all think we've got nothing to give. I just had peanut butter sandwiches. What have you got in your hands that God can use? Because when you start going, if the ship comes out of the harbor and you start moving, God will move your rudder if you're going in the wrong direction. And you just have to give him a little bit, and he will just multiply it.
I think that's great. And one of the stories I heard in the early days, just as we close, is about when they moved onto the village and God had challenged or stirred in your hearts to move onto the village, and you'd moved into one of the homes. It had no luxuries beyond what anyone else in the village had. And one of their things was an open door. And I'd actually like you to comment on that, Joan. I know that was a big move of faith for you guys, but it inspired me to think that you positioned yourself in an unfamiliar space and season and time, and you kept your door wide open for anyone to walk through at any time. Tell us what was going on back there.
Well, when we bought the land, I said one thing to Tich. I said, just don't ask me to move from my beach house in La Lucia onto a farm. That would be my worst nightmare. And he said, it will never happen. And I think when Tich, after 18 months, so this couple that were running the church and living in the farmhouse said that their season was up, and we thought they were there for life. We started to pray for someone to come and run the church and live and be the village manager. And nothing happened. And we kept praying, and the time was getting closer, and nothing happened. And eventually Tich came to me and he said, I think God is asking us to move. And I said, that's fine. I'll help you pack and I'll visit you on weekends. I meant it. And then someone gave me a book called Love Has a Face by Michelle Perry. And she has one hip, one leg, and one kidney. And God sent her to southern Sudan to build an orphanage there. And I closed the book and I said to Tich, I'm ready to go to Verulam. And I said to him later, I said, best I came to Verulam before God sent me to southern Sudan. And then after 3, we thought we were there for life. We really did. And there was, you know how when you step out, God gives you the grace. And I can honestly say that there was nowhere else I would rather be. It sounds ludicrous to the world, but I loved living on that village. And we thought we were there for life. And then at the beginning of this year, we handed over the management to these 3 young couples. And I woke up one morning and I said, God, this house is not mine. It's yours. I give it back to you. And with that, God removed the scales from my eyes. And I realized that the village manager needs to live in the village manager's house. And we were no longer the managers. And we realized that God was sending us back because it was new villages that we needed to pioneer. And so we're back in our house in La Lucia. And I tell you what, that's been a more difficult move than going to the village. Wow. Because I miss them so much.
Wow, that's interesting.
I think, the young couples have taken over now, and we felt God say, give them space to walk into the fullness that I have for their lives. While we were there, people would still come to us and come and chat to us. And so we felt God say it's time to move off the village. And it was harder to get Johnny off the village than to get her on the village, because these children have become our lives. It's like he's given us another family. It's like your children have grown up and now he's given you these precious children. So we just love them so much. It's our life.
Well, I think it would be, for us, appropriate just to honor you for stepping out, for moving out of the beach house. But that is just a small part of the sacrifice, I think, that we haven't been able to dig into today. And I think that great reward is great sacrifice. After all, Jesus gave his life for us to live in the blessing of everything we didn't deserve. And so when we model that to humanity, it's a picture of God's love for us. And I think you've modeled an incredible sacrifice, not to just to these children, but to the people that have seen your story, and to us as a church that continue to sow into your story. And we want to say thank you. Thank you for stepping out. Thank you for sacrificing so much to make a difference in this nation. And we honor you today. And so let's just honor this couple and thank them for what they're doing. Yeah, we do. We honor you.
Thank you for listening to the message today. If you felt inspired or if you have a testimony to share, why don't you email us at info@linkchurch.com. If you'd like to sow into the ministry financially, you can do so by going to linkchurch.com/giving. Have a blessed week.